Call our meeting to order.
Duck and cover. Duck and cover. I know.
First item is roll call. Diane?
We're going to change that from the wood rubber.
Mayor Skook,
Present.
Vice Mayor Anderson,
Here.
Councilmember Grossman,
Here.
Councilmember Mallory, here. Councilmember Marshall,
Here.
Councilmember Nye,
I think I'm here.
Councilmember Whiting,
Here.
and Mayor, if you will, I will go ahead and do the roll call for the commission as well.
Okay, go for it.
Chairman Yater,
Here.
Vice Chairman Reeves, yes. Commissioner Dusky, here. Commissioner Rankin,
Here.
Commissioner Zerker,
Here.
Commissioner Roberts, here. And Commissioner Rutherford. Here. Again, we have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you, Diane. Number 3, discussion regarding general plan amendment related to the town center proposed multifamily apartment project. Richard.
Mr. Mayor, this brings back memories. Just as a reminder, we're trying to get this thing on tape, and if we'd work together to pass the microphones, I know there's one in front of Rick, there's another one over here, so if you do want to go on record with something, it's important you talk into the microphone so that Diane can prepare the minutes. Appreciate that. The other one is these microphones, as you notice, you have to just about eat them in order to be able to be heard. I can hear you plainly, but to put it on the record, I know that she'd appreciate it. About 18 months ago, actually just 18 months ago, the Commission and Council held a joint session during which they conducted a field visit of a couple of spots in town, one of which was an approximately 9-acre site in the entertainment district, which was being proposed then for a multiple family project. Following that field visit, the Town Council and Planning Commission held a joint session and heard from then the proposed developer of the project their plans. There were a number of issues arising from that conversation, so that application did not proceed forward to a formal hearing process. The property owner now has come forward with a revised concept for the downtown apartments. They've done some visioning for all of downtown or Section 14, arising from changes in the market and arising from changes with development, commercial development in the town of Prescott Valley. We're aware that the Crossroads development has occurred and has attracted a number of box type of developments, and those were ones contemplated for downtown. The Fain Signature Group shares that they've had multiple suitors for this piece of property, so they would like to rekindle the process of considering this suitably for multiple family. You're familiar with the site. It's illustrated here on the on the screen, if you can see it. And then they have a very conceptual site plan that has been submitted showing in excess of 260 units. And that's in approximately the same configuration, the number of units, I should say, as what was previously proposed by the previous developer. Pardon me. The general plan for the town of Prescott Valley, or for Section 14, calls this out for multiple use areas. However, it's zoned commercially, and the town of Prescott Valley's zoning ordinance prohibits the placement of residential units as a standalone use in a commercial use district. It would be on that basis that if this application is to move forward, a general plan amendment would be necessary to designate this area as suitably developed with multiple family. This matter has been set to appear on the Commission's agenda on the 10th, and that recommendation will come to the Town Council sometime in August, depending upon the outcome of the Planning Commission. A couple of changes have occurred relative to the technical submittal since you last discussed this. At a previous work study, staff expressed some concern about eliminating the reoccurring revenue that would accrue to the town as part of commercial development. It was suggested, excuse me, that in place of that recurring revenue, the town would have sought a surcharge on the rents. The surcharge on rents has been a consistent application by the town of Prescott Valley on the larger projects or apartment projects. There was some hesitancy and some concern about that, establishing a precedent, and I believe those issues have been worked out. The other issue stemmed from this property being part of a standby contribution for operation of the event center, and the town at that time was party to a lawsuit, was later was excused from that lawsuit, and the concern was potentially changing the zoning. What kind of effect would that have on the outcome of that lawsuit, and would the bondholders for the event center have the basis to come back and potentially sue the town for changing that agreement which allowed for the property to develop commercially. Since then, there has been a resolution to that issue, and Ivan Legler has gone into some detail describing that in a briefing to you. I apologize, that briefing came out earlier in the week, and is the basis that the Planning and Zoning Commission will consider this item on the 10th of the month. Brad Fain is here. I'm sure he'd be happy to talk with you a little bit about the changing conditions in downtown that he believes support the action that's being proposed. Once again, this is going to be subject of a formal public hearing in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission in August, and will come to the council thereafter. With that, Mr. Mayor, I will respond to any questions you may have, or members of the commission, and certainly assist Mr. Fain in responding to any technical issues that you have regarding the processing of this application.
Any of the council or commissions have any questions? Marty?
Some of the other issues that we were asking about the last time we discussed this were noise, traffic, parking. You know, what has changed from last year to this year to address those issues?
In terms of parking, there has not been a specific plan proffered in support of the application. However, if the general plan is amended, a preliminary development plan would have to be developed and presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Having worked with that group for quite some time, I'm very confident that they would address comprehensively parking. In terms of noise, actually, I'm finding in doing some research that residential uses combined with commercial uses, it's not the residential use that's a problem with noise, but rather it's the commercial use, emptying of trash and things like that. In a commercial area typically occurs early in the morning while people are sleeping in apartments. So that would be something that would have to be addressed in terms of management of the adjoining entertainment complex as an example. But I don't know that there would be necessarily inherent additional noise coming from an apartment complex as opposed to a commercial development downtown.
Good. Any other questions? How about Mr. Fain, you want to comment?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Council, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and you guys considering this minor general plan amendment. Again, as Mr. Parker said, we see it as a outcome of a lot of things occurring in the marketplace. First and foremost, the Great Recession that impacted everybody in the marketplace, and as a result, everybody's changed how they're doing business going forward. Our neighbors to the west are doing very well, building big boxes down there at that project, and we're very happy for their success because their success is Prescott Valley's success, and that helps us all. But if you look at the landscape, there's only so many retailers that our population can support. And our original plan for downtown had, going up and down Glassford Hill, many more big box retailers going up and down the street of Glassford Hill Road. Given the location of several 100,000 square feet of big box retail to our partner to the west, our neighbor, it's not likely that we're going to see more big box retail going up and down Glassford outside of our existing Glassford Hill Marketplace development, which we intend to fully build out as retail. So we have worked the last 16 months with a land planner and refocusing how we can continue to build the urban core of downtown Prescott Valley to make it a vibrant place where people want to be, a place where people want to stay and linger and be a part of Prescott Valley. And through that process, we've come up with a new plan which shows residential life in downtown Prescott Valley. It shows continued growth in commercial aspects, both retail commercial and business commercial, and hopefully in the future building a place where corporate businesses might want to relocate to Prescott Valley, because this is a wonderful place to be, and we're seeing more and more businesses migrating out of the larger urban areas and looking for smaller, friendlier places to live with cleaner air, better environment, and we think Prescott Valley has that to offer. So this is a continuation of that thinking, and trying to keep the design that you see up there is really trying to embrace the Main Street design, and so that we don't lose that feel that we were trying to create of Main Street. So if you can visualize a facade going down Main Street that's a brownstone facade that kind of looks like commercial buildings, it just happens to be residential living in there. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from it. We had our neighborhood meeting, and the members that showed up to that were very positive and supportive of the project. They like the idea of housing in downtown, and they recognize that many downtowns have housing where people can live, work, and play and never have to get in a car. And this kind of supports that vision that's always been a vision and in the background of Prescott Valley, a place where you don't have to get in your car and go someplace. And this place is centrally located between 3 grocers, lots of job opportunities with YRMC just to the northeast of the facility, entertainment with the event center and the local restaurants around there. And this is really just a transformation of what we're proposing, and we're reconfiguring what the entertainment district looks like, and we hope to be able to come back before council again with new commercial pads within the entertainment district that will keep that commercial vitality going, those retail sales tax that we also want, because that helps the community grow. So we don't look at this as a replacement, but just a reconfiguration. And the more people we get in downtown, the more vibrant downtown is, and the more all the retailers and businesses that are located in downtown can do. So I can answer any questions, but we're really excited about this, and we think it's a continuation of our original vision, and that there would always be some type of residential in downtown. I think our original plan showed this particular site as just residential from the 2nd floor up. And we really thought that was a wonderful idea. And so we went out, part of this process over the last 16 months is we contacted the developer that developed Kierland. And we said, how'd you do it? He goes, well, first you have to understand we're on phase 17 in Kierland. So what you see today and everybody loves today wasn't what it was like on phase 1. And it's a transformation of evolution to get to the density and the way Kierland looks. And what we would create in Prescott Valley would be Prescott Valley's version of that, but it takes a while to get there, and you don't get there on day 1, you get there. In their case, it's phase 17 and a decade or 2 later, and they're there. And so we got a lot of insight from that developer that developed Kierland on how we can approach planning the entertainment district to accomplish the same feel for Prescott Valley, at Prescott Valley's scale. It'll never be a Kierland. I don't want to mislead people. We're not going to have 30-story condos, but we'll have 4-story buildings or 3-story buildings that are Prescott Valley's.
Good. Questions, comments, anyone? Mr. Dusky?
Thank you. Mr. Payne, can you elaborate at all on the other plans that you might have regarding the commercial ventures in the downtown area? You mentioned that you'd studied all that and you had plans for it.
Yeah, what I can elaborate on there is we're looking, right now the commercial activity that's been very attractive to retailers in Prescott Valley downtown have been the pads out on Glassford Hill Road. So what we're looking at is ways that we can reconfigure the entertainment district to provide more pads along Glassford Hill Road, keeping with the theme that we have there, not disrupting the landscaping and what we've worked the last 15 years to grow, but add more retail pads and more site-specific areas for people to develop and retailers and restaurants to come. And so we've had some interest, and so we're just in the initial planning phases, but we see to the west of this project will ultimately be built out as commercial pads, but as an interim use, we might put in some park-like settings so it can be used today as a private park open to the public, and then eventually it can be transformed into more buildings. And then along Glassford Hill Road, we would see the addition of more commercial pads where you would see either a single-use tenant or you would see like those small multi-tenant buildings that we have on Glassford Hill Road today. No specific users right now. We're just trying to replan and reconfigure where the market's driving today, and that's where the market's been driving on Glassford Hill Road. Does that help answer?
This thing isn't easy to use. Yeah, so this would be the first phase of your entertainment center concept. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and as I understand it, you would have no immediate plans for any other commercial development in the entertainment center?
There's no need today for it. We don't have any users driving towards that, but what we're trying to do is, on paper, configure new opportunities so that we can market those opportunities. And as soon as we get a user interested in it, then we would be back before adding those new pads out front when we have a user in tow.
Thank you.
Larry, did you have a comment? No? Any other comments? Larry?
Mr. Mayor, Brad, you may want to elaborate a little bit on the difference between the Calthorpe original plan and then the new look that you're taking at Section 14, in that you're able to overlay how many mill avenues in Section 14, and that Calthorpe was overly aggressive on their commercial side as opposed to the residential side?
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate that. The new planner that we have spent a lot of time with us going over what he calls scale and scope. And so we spent a lot of time looking at other communities, Mill Avenue, we looked at Kierland, we looked at Boulder, and we looked at the size of their retail hubs that they have. And our current entertainment district, what people think of the entertainment district today, which would be the existing buildings up around the event center, up to Sundogs, I think we could fit 6 Kierlands in that space. And the likelihood of Prescott Valley housing 6 Kierlands on a commercial retail scale is highly unlikely, because what sits across from Kierland is Arizona's largest employment base with the Scottsdale Air Park and a couple million people on the other side surrounding it. And so it's a very unique opportunity that they have. And so we're trying to get the scale and the scope more in balance with our marketplace. And we feel by adding residential units down in close to it, we can drive a magnitude of impact to the area. So if we add 250 or 60 apartment units, that's 500 people, but that energy might create a multiple of that of energy down there for people shopping and wanting to be in the area. So we spent a lot of time looking at that. And Prescott Valley, from our perspective and what we've learned, is we don't have a land problem. We don't have a space problem. We've got to start condensing it in there. We have plenty of room to accomplish everything that we want to accomplish. We just need to get the size and the scale and scope back into context of where we are today, and leave our planning really is focusing on where we are today so we can transact today and keep building the community, but also put it in a situation where when the market changes, we can change and evolve with the market.
Other question? Larry?
When you were looking at the change in this property and the amount of apartments that you're looking to bring in now, did you do any sort of a look at how that's going to affect your businesses right there in the entertainment district? Because obviously we all know we've lost a couple of restaurants. They've come and gone. Have you looked at what kind of an impact that would have with the retention of the business of the entertainment district?
We have. We've done a couple things. One, we've studied it from a market study analysis perspective, looking, and that was in our conversations with the developer of Kierland and how those residential units impacted their project. And then we also did one-on-one interviews with our tenants, and we asked them, we had a list of about 10 or 15 different things we were considering and what they thought would be the biggest benefit to their business and what they could drive other business off of. The restaurants all like the idea of having 500 people living within walking distance of them because it's just real convenient, and people can come, they can enjoy dinner, have a nice meal, a glass of wine, and then they're just walking home. So they thought it was a real benefit, and they thought it was something that they could drive further business from. The office personnel that are down there, they liked it from, perhaps some of our employees would like to live right here. They were a little more reserved by it because the people we were talking to, like when I leave work, I just want to get away from it. I don't want to live across the street from it. But they could see the benefit of having housing down there. When we met with the CEO of YRMC, he really liked the idea of it. He thought having housing there for his operation would be a real benefit to people working at the East Campus out here because they could walk to work, and it's far enough away from work. They're in a different environment. So we did do some studies, nothing that would be certified or stamped, but we did some internal studies with our tenants.
Other questions? Gary?
Can you hear me? Okay. My question is the traffic between the convention center and the apartments. I mean, are you going to have a traffic review for us when you come before the commission? Because I've looked at the last event they had for 3 days. That place was packed. I mean, literally packed. My biggest concern is the traffic control. And also, I have a real problem with this going shopping type of thing because there's really nothing for anybody to go to. That's why these pads you're talking about, I don't know exactly where you're going to put them for future commercial use. So can you give me some information on that? Where are you going to put these pads?
So, first the pads. What we're looking at is the possibility along Glassford Hill Road that we could reconfigure that, perhaps have a right-in, right-out that would line up with the theater, the main walkway with the theater. So we would be turning people in just north of Buffalo Wild Wings and they would be turning into the heart of what the retail activity is in the center. And so right now what we find is the current design put Park Avenue in what was intended to be the middle of the project. But Park Avenue is really on the eastern edge of the project. So when people turn down Park, they're on the edge of the project rather than in the center of the project from where the retail activity is. And so what we're trying to do is reconfigure the flow of traffic to get into the heart of it so they can be right down in the middle of it and see what's going on and create a space where they want to stay and linger. And so what we're doing is we're designing pads that are conceptual, and then we'll market those. And what I would envision is there'll be, certainly food users would be attracted to them because they love to be on busy streets like Glassford, but it could be a multi-tenant building like you see in Glassford Hill Marketplace where you have a food user, you have a dentist, a vision center, different types of retail activity. So that's kind of what we're visualizing there. And then we could see that whole pad, if you would, from Glassford Hill Road to Main Street that's basically vacant today. We could see reconfiguring that to where we could add more pads in there, add park space for people to create a different environment to linger, and then also accomplish the parking needs that we're going to accomplish with all of that. So what we're trying to do is create spaces where people want to stay. That's what we see as one of our fundamental breakdowns right now is people are going to different venues, but there's no reason for them to linger. So they go to the movie theater and they leave. They go to a restaurant and they leave. We're trying to create an environment down there where people want to, let's go to the park, let's hang out, and then we'll go grab a bite to eat. Or maybe we'll go walk around and shop, and there's more opportunity for them to stay down there, and the longer they stay, the more opportunity there is for the tenants and the retailers down there to transact with them. As far as the traffic, we have the original traffic studies that were done for the event center, and the use that we're proposing is no more intense than what was proposed in that traffic study. So as a developer, I'm not concerned about the traffic. I think it should all function and flow based on the traffic study we had then. If anything, the apartments would create less traffic because there's no commercial activity underneath it. I would think if we had the commercial activity on the ground floor and apartments above it, which were in one of the concepts of the traffic engineer studied, there would be more traffic than there are with just apartments.
Well, that's my biggest concern is the traffic, especially between, on Florentine, between the convention center, I call it the convention center, and where you're going to put the apartments. To me, that's going to be a real congested problem. I hope you can resolve it.
We'll look into that. Thank you.
Laura?
We're really behind the curve on this. Many communities have successfully already created the synergy that you're talking about. Do we have issues to resolve? Of course. But I'm excited that you're back here with our plans for the future of medical and educational here. It's totally logical and sensible plan. So thank you for all the hard work you put into it and for coming forward again.
Well, thank you for the comments, and it feels good to be back here with a project. It's been, I don't know, 6-7 years, and it's a long drought, so we're very pleased to be back here. Thank you.
Mary?
You know, Mr. Fain, I just want to say that, you know, I realize way back when there was a plan, and it may not be the one we're looking at today, but, you know, we make plans going forward, and then things happen, and we don't always know. So we get recreative, and we move forward. And I think that's the part to really appreciate, the fact that we don't give up here, and that we continue to move forward, and we may get knocked down a little bit. We may have to change things around, but we're continuing, you know, to try. And I appreciate that for you. And change is hard. Sometimes it goes smoothly, sometimes it doesn't. But I absolutely appreciate the energy that you continue to try.
I appreciate that. And just for those that don't realize it, Larry might remember, but this is our third look with a formal land planner at a downtown plan. You mentioned Calthorpe. Well, there was the Calthorpe plan, and then there was a plan that we worked on with Browning Moore and Associates, which kind of modified the Calthorpe plan. Then there's this plan that we've come up with. So this is the third formal iteration of planning downtown, and there was probably 2 informal ones, one before Calthorpe, call that the Bob Pavlich plan. I think Larry may have seen that one. And so it is an evolution. You have to continue to reinvent and relook and see what the market's doing and how the market's changing. And I would say the Great Recession has changed the market. I mean, one of the things we're seeing with retailers is the guys that were in 10,000 feet are now in 7,500 or 5,000. Everybody is shrinking down, and we have to adjust to that, and we have to plan for that. And it changes the way you do business. And so I appreciate you acknowledging that, and we're committed to keep changing and keep looking at it.
I know.
Good. Other questions, Mike?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. I was interested in your timing, your outlook in terms of when these things will occur, I guess your implementation plan, and whether or not the development of the residential would be the influence then to attract these other things you're talking about in your vision.
Of course, everything is subject to the outcome of going through the commission and then going before council.
Right.
But if we get a favorable vote there, we're prepared to move forward. We do have a partner that we're forming a joint venture for the apartments on now. I would say that if everything went smoothly and perfectly, we could probably be breaking ground in the first quarter of 16. But we would be doing a lot of planning in this last quarter of this year to get it done. And then with that, we would be selling the apartment project concept to retailers out there to let them know that it's coming. And we've already had some interest. We've done what we're calling our road show, and we've gone around into different venues of different groups and just laid it out what we're thinking from a real macro perspective all the way down microly to downtown Prescott Valley. And we've had developers in there, we've had retailers in there, we've had business personnel in there, we've had some of the town staff in there to get their feedback. And we're having people come back to us and saying, we're really excited about that. Other developers are saying, we could see this really being a great project and a great new vision for that part of the urban core. So we're ready to get rolling right now, and then we're going to go as fast as the market will go with us.
Thank you.
Mr. Dusky?
Yeah, just for definition purposes, I'm going back to the apartment complex itself, being on the Planning Commission. That is what the general plan amendment is regarding, isn't it? The apartment complex as opposed to commercial. And the other is something else, in my opinion. But I want to define the apartments. Are these to be apartments on lease, on month-to-month, vacation rentals? What's the purpose of the apartment?
The apartment business will be like the other apartment projects in Prescott Valley. So they will be, we're calling them luxury apartments. We believe they're going to be a nicer product than what's in Prescott Valley today, but they're going to be your standard 12-month contract. I think we can go down to a 6-month contract, but the intent is those 12-month contracts. So just like the Tapestry, just like the Glassford Hill Terraces, it will be an apartment project.
Thank you. Other questions? No? Anything else? Rick, do you have anything to add to it? Or Richard, I should say?
I did want to pick up on a comment that I think I heard Councilwoman Nye express about the changes in downtown. I know the manager and a lot of leadership here has worked really hard with the universities to try to get them to look favorably at downtown Prescott Valley. If that is to occur, while there is a large component identified in the Calthorpe plan, which was the basis for General Plan 2025 for that activity in downtown, you're going to see changes. You're going to see changes for additional residential to support what would be a university in downtown. And you've heard me say before, I grew up in Flagstaff. I watched the changes that occurred between the transition of Arizona State Teachers College to NAU, and it was remarkable. So if that does occur, yeah, there will be a rethinking as to the suitable uses and their location in downtown, and one of those components will be residential activity, could even be dormitories. So this will be an ever-evolving process.
Mr. Tarkowski had another comment.
Just to go ahead and make a correction to what Richard had said, he had stated if NAU was coming to downtown Prescott Valley, and that is actually incorrect. It's a question of when. That project is continuing to move forward. We're looking at a partnership between Yavapai College and Northern Arizona University, and they're very excited. Both of their presidents are excited about the opportunity to see a luxury apartment complex come to our downtown area, because right now they have no dormitory facilities, and as they are moving forward with allied health facility planning, this is key and integral to that plan. And so as downtown evolves, you will end up seeing, as Richard had stated, more need for residential in the downtown area.
I won't go tit for tat with Larry, but I will tell him that I'd be happy to buy him coffee and pie when that happens. I'll be happy. The other thing is, it just came up actually in the department head meeting today, and I've seen it over and over. The occupancy rates on existing apartments are well in excess of 99.99%. They have waiting lists. I'm understanding the guy from recently hired for PVEDF was an example used today, where he went to the Terraces project off of Glassford Hill, or whatever that's called, and he was number 46 on the waiting list, and he went up on the hill and he was number 64 or something like that, if my memory serves me, on a waiting list to get into apartments. The apartments across from us, senior living activity, as well as off of Windsong, they are at full occupancy, 100%, also with a waiting list. So there is a market in downtown or in Prescott Valley for additional apartments, and that's been borne out very evidently by studies.
Good. Other questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to reconfirm with Richard that still on the table is this reoccurring revenue based on, I think, some of the input we had the first time around relative to the loss of potential retail in that area. So that's still on the table. That'd pencil out as far as rents and everything at this point, or would that change if the project was different?
The staff will propose, if this moves forward, that one of the stipulations associated with entitlement zoning map change would actually be that stipulation that there be a surcharge applied. And we've done that historically on projects of this size. And that would come to the council in a recommendation as part of the resolution. There are some details, obviously, that will be worked out as this moves forward at the Planning Commission level, the technical issues that you've heard about, traffic and things like that. But right now, it's important to understand we're thinking about the concept only. Is it suitable in downtown? And then the technical submittals will come to support the actual entitlement, one of which would regard reoccurring revenues.
Good. Any other questions, comments? If there be no further comments, then we'll move on to the next agenda item, number 4, discussion regarding proposed modification of Section 14 Downtown Master Circulation Plan, eliminating the use of roundabouts in that area. Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Chairman. How's your voice over there?
Oh, I'm fine.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commission, some time ago, the town of Prescott Valley asked the property owner, Fain Signature Group, for Section 14 to prepare a traffic analysis to define the street sections for downtown Prescott Valley. That was done necessarily so that when a developer came in, the seller of the land and the regulatory authority would be able to say, developer, this is the type of road you build. These are the improvements that are necessary to support the type of development that you're proposing. That was done by a registered professional traffic engineer, a woman named Tovey White, working then for a company called Kennelly Horn in Phoenix. And Ms. White went through each and every street configuration, looked at current traffic modeling as well as projected volumes based on land use, because we know the land use adjacent to the road is actually what drives the traffic on the road. It's not necessarily people going through an area. She came to conclusions and made recommendations, and as part of our general plan, we have a circulation element, section or chapter 6, which defines those roadway improvements. It also defines specifically location of intersection improvements and what those intersection improvements would look like. It just so happens that that planning document proposes the utilization of roundabout intersections at 4 locations in downtown, and those are illustrated on this visual before you. The property owner and the town looked at doing roundabout configurations in the context of today as opposed to what was contemplated 8 or 10 years ago. Part of the concern has been expressed, and that is the concept of changing the downtown master plan, where areas adjacent to or near these roundabouts previously were intended to be developed with big boxes. Now, as it's been described, there would be considerably more residential traffic. You've probably seen people moving around the Civic Circle facility. You've probably seen people crossing roads to go to the library recently as 2 examples. So the developer asked Kennelly Horn, or I should say Tovey White, to come forward and analyze or reanalyze these intersections to determine if they could be suitably developed other than with roundabouts and achieve the same thing. In your packet, you have those materials in a letter to Larry, as well as the original master circulation plan that was done by Kennelly Horn, or excerpts from that. And Mrs. White goes through some detail about how she did her analysis. And she comes to a conclusion saying that either configuration would work. It's really up to the town to determine if they want to have a stop condition or a lighted condition or a roundabout. And so I think as we proceed forward with development, instead of just saying we will have roundabouts and that's the way it's going to be and that's all it's going to be, will have to be, I think, a little more careful in looking at those intersections and recognizing that there would be pedestrian ways that may be defined. Roundabouts and pedestrians don't mix very well. I would encourage you to try to go through a roundabout, walk through a roundabout, and there are several that we could maybe do that experiment with. But because they are not pedestrian friendly, I think they're nominating Steve to do just that. But people are not used to roundabouts necessarily, and so as a result of that, it's a recommendation that we keep our eyes open and support either a roundabout or a signalized intersection. This item is going to come to the Planning and Zoning Commission on the 10th in the form of an amendment to the general plan, a minor amendment to the circulation element based on recommendations from a registered professional traffic engineer. I didn't see the traffic engineer here today, but I'd certainly try to respond to any questions that you may have regarding the process that brought us to today or the information that was used in developing the town's General Plan 2025.
Mr. Dusky, no comment?
I'm just sitting there minding my own business. Richard,
Would you use use the microphone so it goes on TV?
Two questions.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do you know if in the budget or in the proposal, are these roundabouts currently funded or prepared to be funded?
I'll let Larry answer that one.
Okay.
Presently, we have on the drawing board and in our capital improvement plan the improvement of Lakeshore Drive from Lake Valley out to Glassford Hill Road. As you're aware, there's a portion of it that has a landscape median. Actually, the landscape median does run the full length. One side of the road, meaning the Civic Center side, the north side of the road, is 2-lane with sidewalk, curb, and gutter for a portion of it. Then it drops down to 1 lane. Then it balloons out to a 3-lane to accommodate turns. On the south side of Lakeshore Drive, south of the median, it is only a 1-lane road. All of that is scheduled this fiscal year, which started just a couple of weeks ago. Those improvements will be made, which will make that a 2-lane in each direction with curb, gutter, and a sidewalk extension out to Glassford Hill Road on the north side of the road. Now, as it relates to traffic control at Civic Circle and Lakeshore Drive, originally the plan was calling for a roundabout in that location, and so the design engineer began designing the roundabout when the question began to be asked of everybody, is this pedestrian friendly? And if we're going to have a significant number of university students in the property north of Lakeshore Drive, which is highly likely, then how are we going to get those university students to the restaurant area or to the movie theater, and how are they going to cross if that is a roundabout? And so we started asking the hard questions and then brought in Toby White to go ahead and assist us with the answers to those. So if this goes forward as a modification, then we will not build the roundabout at Civic Circle and Lakeshore this fiscal year. That location for an intersection more than likely is going to move about 250 to 300 feet to the west, because the existing extension of Main Street is more than likely going to go away. And so until we end up having a much better idea what the development plans are going to be, then that when we know the true location of the Main Street extension, we will then be making a decision whether it'll be a roundabout and or a signal light or whatever. But the improvements for the road, yes, they're going to happen this fiscal year. Will there be a roundabout constructed? No. That doesn't mean that we won't do it in the future or that intersection may be signalized in the future. Don't know, but we are going to fix the road.
Good. Mr. Dusky?
Well, I'll reserve my question for the Planning Commission meeting so I can get an answer. The question was, are these roundabouts funded? Commission?
The answer is yes. And
They are
as
currently
I
funded.
was just saying, in our capital improvement plan, the road is to be improved, and there was going to be a regulated intersection, initially with a roundabout. With a roundabout being put on hold, then that money will not be expended until we have a better idea what the traffic control device will be, whether it's a roundabout or a signal light.
Okay.
Steve, you got anything for defense? Negative. Any other comments, questions?
And again, this will be presented to the Planning Commission on the 10th of August, and will come to you thereafter.
No more comments, anyone? If not,
Thank you.
then we move on to number 5. Discussion regarding amendments to Town Code Chapter 13, Lodging Code. Carmen?
Great. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and Commission. So I'm going to keep on with the subject of market changes. And what I have before you for discussion is some code amendments relating to short-term residential rentals. So residential rentals recently have really become a real popular trend with how people travel. And recently our partners, Yavapai County, Coconino County, and other jurisdictions have looked at their codes. We've also had some inquiries in community development as to how we regulate and how we handle vacation rentals. And that's made us take a look at our code. And in doing so, we've noticed that it's lacking in performance standards for these types of uses. So staff has gone through the code with the legal department and has drafted some proposed code amendments. And so some significant changes that staff is looking at. We're going to be changing or adding some standards which will include a non-transferable use permit. Currently, let me back up just a minute there. The use is currently allowed with a use permit. We don't have any operating at this time, but we do anticipate, again, because of the popularity of this type of travel and the direction that the town is taking with promoting events, that this type of use will only grow in popularity. So we're recommending a non-transferable 2-year term for the use permit. A business license will be required. There's going to be a maximum occupancy on the units or the properties. There will be rental agreements required. Hosts will be required to meet guests on arrival and supply 24-hour contact. Off-street parking requirements will be required also. Let's see, those are some of the main types of regulations or code amendments that we're looking at, performance standards, in order to ensure that the neighborhoods are protected as well as the hosts and the town. And if I can answer any questions, I'd be more than happy to.
Questions, anyone? Mike?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious. I think the county as well as the city of Prescott are going through similar analysis, and I'm just wondering, are we using what they may be bringing to the table to look at as an option as well? It sounds like
We've looked at several different codes. I think there's kind of two approaches. You can overregulate it, or and right now currently our town code has already provisions for nuisance-related things, and sometimes you don't necessarily need to put them in both places or elaborate so much on them. I think that we've pretty much covered those things. With respect to that particular question, yes, we have looked at other jurisdictions' codes, and we have taken note of what they're doing and have incorporated some of their proposed standards as well.
Mary? No question? Oh, Marty?
Yeah, I have a quick question. One of the things you said was that the host has to meet the tenants for the period. What if they hire a company that does the renting out for them, which is more than likely what's happening, because there are all these exchange companies now on the internet that you could, and they're springing up, pretty quick, and it's, like you said, it's becoming pretty popular. So can a representative of the host meet the people, or is it strictly the host?
No, an agent can represent a property owner as well. The main concern with that, again, is that there is a physical body, a person there to make sure that the guest is familiar with the property, is familiar with the procedures, where everything is, and staff thought that was a pretty important part, so that you don't just have a keypad on the door or whatever, that there's an actual person to make sure that that's a smooth transition to having someone come stay at a residential property.
Thank you.
Good. Any other? Mr. Dusky? No questions?
Am I the only one from the Planning Commission with any questions?
Must be, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Can I have one?
In fact, I guess I have two, if I may. What is the minimum duration of the stay for these things if they're permitted and so forth for the guests?
That would be up to the property owner, but a short-term rental is considered anywhere from 1 to 30 days.
Okay, and my other question would be, how does this zoning ordinance relate to HOA prohibitions against these things?
HOAs, people who have HOAs would need to deal with their HOAs. That wouldn't be something that we would be involved with.
So if the HOA prohibits it, then the town would not necessarily overrule them?
That doesn't work, does it? Ivan, do you want to help me with that?
Yes, as you know, HOAs can go beyond what zoning ordinances have. And so something might be permitted by a zoning ordinance, but an HOA might, as long as state law doesn't prohibit it, might go in and be stricter in their regulations.
Thank you.
Good. Mr. Yater? Yes. No question?
No, sir.
Anyone else? Okay. No other questions? Gary, no questions? Mrs. Rutherford? Okay, if there's any other comments, Carmen?
No, just that this will be going to the Planning Commission also in August.
Okay. If there'd be no further question, then we'd move on to number 6, which I know everyone hates. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate that. Good meeting. And by the way, Carmen, the paperwork was very good on all these